By the right of the council, by the will of the force. Welcome back into a bonus episode of the Galaxy Famous. We're not sure if Kathleen Kennedy approves this podcast. Probably not. Jedi Talk podcast. I am Atomica here on the High Council, joined by always, not sure which council he's on this evening, but I know he's here representing some sort of special group. That's Brad Hughes. Brad, how the hell are you tonight?
It's going good. And you know what? By the looks of things, man, it doesn't matter if Kathleen Kennedy approves or not because she's Kathleen Kennedy.
Oh, dun, 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 dun. Canned.
Yeah.
Well, we are joined by our other co-host, the man, the legend, Evan T. Boucher. Evan, how the hell are you tonight?
Dika and good journey. So if she's like Kennedy, is that like Captain Kennedy of The Last Jedi?
Ooh,
Maybe that was the Easter egg the entire time. Let's
It
go with
was
that. Let's
foreshadowing.
start going.
Foreshadowing.
Let's start going that is a reference to her getting fired 10 years later.
Yep, we called it. It was us.
well,
We
there you
said
go.
that.
And this is it. This is a bonus episode of Jedi Talk. We said it because we morning hours this morning. I don't know. I saw it about 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. I don't know about you guys, but just saw the news that Kathleen Kennedy was planning on retiring at the end of 2025. I don't know if any of us had this in our bingo card, but people are happy, people are praising her. What do you guys think?
Um, I'm both, to be honest. Like, she's done a lot of great stuff. Like, if you like anything since Disney purchased Star Wars, that's a Kathleen Kennedy decision. On the flip side of that, if you hate anything, that's a Kathleen Kennedy decision. I think it's going to be really good for Star Wars to get someone new who doesn't, and hear me out, fanboys, before you panic, who doesn't hold Star Wars with this like reverent thing that like only certain people can write and do Star Wars stories and it's got to be this sacred thing. I actually think that a lot of the decisions that they made regarding like the seriousness of Star Wars sounded good on paper, but were not executed well. Like getting rid of Star Wars weekends and like those
Yep.
kind of smaller things that were really fun about being a Star Wars fan kind of got axed in the name of like making. Yes, Disney bought Star Wars as children's entertainment company, but we're going to be the serious part of Disney, and I think some of that got lost. Some of the fun got lost in it.
That's fair.
I don't
But
necessarily think that we need like Mickey walking around with Jedi robes again because I'm not personally a fan of that necessarily. But like there is supposed to be like a whimsical aspect to this. It's these are children's stories for Christ's sake, and I think I don't know. I'm really torn on it because like I think Star Wars should be taken seriously to some degree, but I think not having fun with it is a bad decision and a bad call.
okay. Um, so
I also think it could be a bad move if they replace it with somebody who's worse. It kind of like my excitement kind of depends on what they do. Like if they announce Dave Filoni's the replacement, I'm all in. But like if they bring in like the equivalent of Bob Chapek to Star Wars, which I don't even know who that would be, but like if that's the replacement decision, somebody like that, you made a bad decision.
a lot of people think Kathleen Kennedy is Bob Chapek in the Star Wars, just from like the production that's been just like put out. A lot of people use her as the scapegoat. Um, and I
Yeah,
think,
and
I
yeah,
think
go
it's
ahead, Evan.
fair. It's earned a little
yeah,
bit.
I mean, obviously we are a Star Wars podcast, but she has done so much more than just Star Wars as well. I mean, basically anything from like the 80s on that you love, she's had a hand
Well,
in, to be
here,
honest.
I've got Kathleen Kennedy's early career right in front of us. She began as a production assistant late 1970s, became a producer under, hey, Steven Spielberg. That's a name, right? Last we checked.
Yeah, pretty good
Um,
one.
Who's that?
yeah, exactly. In 1981, she co-founded Amblin Entertainment. Just like Evan said, you love the movie. Kathleen Kennedy's been there, and with Spielberg and her future husband Frank Marshall. She was a key producer on some of the most iconic films in the 80s and 90s, just like Evan had alluded to. E.T., which became the highest grossing film of all time at that point. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, The Goonies,
Did
Back
it
to the
really? That
Future.
movie was that successful? E.T. was that big?
E.T. was huge, man. I mean, this is
Holy
before
shit.
before I was born by 4 or 5 years, but yeah, Back to the Future, like I said, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Jurassic Park and the Lost World, Schindler's List, The Sixth Sense, and that's just a bit of a list that
Yeah.
she's on. Obviously, the
Yeah.
Star Wars movies, but that's where I call out the people crapping on her and not giving her a fair shake because it is unfair. And like Brad said, you could place some of the blame fairly on her shoulders for Star Wars not doing so well, but you also got to rise her up where she needs to be risen up because she's been there. She's not just a puppet head that Disney picked. She's been next to George Lucas and Steven Spielberg and like prominent
Yeah.
figures her whole fucking career. So it's
Yes.
100%.
like back off a little bit, okay? And
Yeah.
she did not kill Star Wars. She did not ruin Star Wars. You can't ruin Star Wars. You
Nope.
can't ruin anything. No one's ruining the feeling you had watching the original trilogy when you were a 7-year-old sitting in your shitty diaper in the movie theater.
And, it's all kind of your own opinion, but in my opinion, I love everything. There's not a single thing in Star Wars canonically that I hate. I love everything Star Wars. So to me, she has not ruined Star Wars. She is not a bad thing for Star Wars. So her retiring isn't like, yay, let's party. It's like, oh, congratulations. You've earned this from everything Star Wars you did, everything not Star Wars you did. But I don't understand the hate because I don't know. I love everything Star Wars. So
Uh,
that's
So
my side
I
of it.
want to I want to talk about this. Do you think this is a retirement or do you think this is a firing? That they're saying she's separating herself from the company, or do you think this was a, hey, look, how many of these shows are we going to keep making that keep not doing well for
Well,
us?
I I I said this
And
in the post that I made
also,
on
hang on.
Inst. Yeah, go
Also,
ahead.
I want to point this out too. The Force, every single Star Wars movie made less than the previous one. So if you go back and look at The Force Awakens, it was the highest grossing film or top three or something like that of all time.
Hmm.
The Last Jedi did half of the business, and I'm pretty sure, let me look it up here, that The Rise of Skywalker did less than The Last Jedi. I know it did, but I don't remember by how much.
Yeah, that is definitely all true. But some of it is also how old is she? Is it time for her to retire? Is she at like retirement age? I feel like she is.
Yeah,
And
I believe
obviously
she's in her 70s. Yeah.
money wise, she's fine. She can easily retire. And her kids and grandkids' kids can probably retire right now,
Yeah,
with all the
she's
money they
she's
have.
balling.
Yeah, so it's not a money thing and it's a age thing. She is old enough to retire. So I honestly think it's just she's retiring, you know.
I
You
could
I'm
see
know,
not
it going either way. Um, okay, so here's the number. So, dude, this is not. They still made a shit ton of money, but that's not how corporations work. You can't go backwards; you have to go forwards.
mm,
So, the individual film performance for The Force Awakens was 2 billion worldwide. The Last Jedi was 1.3 billion, and The Rise of Skywalker was right at 1 billion, a little over.
I want to say something about the Rise of
Barely over.
Skywalker number because that movie came out in December of 2019, and then the world was like real close to popping around then. The shit
Yeah, but I
start.
think it did. I mean, we didn't start shutting down till March, and by that time, if you going dollar for dollar or like week for week, The Force Awakens had already hit by then
Yeah, but
in
I'm talking
2017.
globally. Like the other part of the world shut down before we did.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point.
But anyway,
I would say I would
still,
say
you're
that
right,
did
Brad.
impact the box office a little bit, but I don't think
Yeah,
it would impact it $0.7 billion.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
But the point still stands. They
Yes.
lost money. They lost
they
money
lost money on
seven to eight to
each movie.
nine. That's right. You're right. And we place blame, and Kathleen Kennedy has to take the blame because while we defend the sequel trilogy here hardcore on Jedi Talk,
Mhm.
there is some glaring omissions and glaring problems with it, and
Yes,
people have beat it to a dead horse. I want to say another thing about Kathleen Kennedy.
or
Do you gen-
self-deluded.
yeah, do you gentlemen know who personally selected Kathleen Kennedy to succeed them as president of Lucasfilm when they sold the company to Disney? Do you know who did
Yeah,
that?
George Lucas
Yeah,
did.
that's George.
Exactly.
He handpicked her.
Thank
Yep.
you. So
I think we've mentioned
everyone,
that in the past too on the show. It's
yeah,
like, hey guys, you hold George this high and mighty standard, but yet you hate Kathleen Kennedy. It's like double standard, guys. If George is the best ever, Kathleen's the best ever by your own thoughts. And I don't think she's the best ever, but like I said, I
no.
appreciate what she's done. I defend what she's done. I like her, so I don't understand the hate that she's getting.
I
I mean,
understand it to a degree because I don't see how you could be in charge. This is my one big complaint about her. I don't see how you could be in charge of the biggest media franchise in the world at the time. Obviously, Marvel has 13 times the movies, but they still made more money overall. One of the biggest media franchises in the world, and sit down and not have a sequel trilogy planned out. I think that was such a stupid fucking call.
And that is a thing we'll probably never know, but how much of that is pressure from the company that owns Lucasfilm, saying, "Hey, we got to have these movies right now. We just paid all this money to buy you. We need movies." So
That's
that's,
fine, but you still need to have. I mean, you could say the same thing about Marvel, but they did it successfully for
yeah,
a long, long, long time. No, no, no. They
they
did it
used to.
successfully for a
Yeah.
decade,
Yep.
which is
Before they got
crazy.
bought.
No, they were bought already at the time. The only movies that aren't MCU Disney films are like the first Iron Man and then like maybe Thor, whichever one say Paramount at the beginning. There's only three or four of them. Disney did it very successfully with Marvel. They
The
should have
first
sat
20
down.
movies. Yeah.
Yeah, they should have. That's the time period I'm talking about. Uh,
Yep.
they 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 did it very well with Marvel, and they should have done it with Star Wars. You should have sat down with your story group the day you found
Hmm.
this out. You should have gone, okay, this is where we start, this is where we end, and they, by all accounts, didn't do that. I mean, Ryan Johnson has been on record at Star Wars Celebration going like, I had free reign to do whatever I wanted. Which, when you have somebody like him who's a fucking genius and creates the Last Jedi, that's great. But when you panic fire someone because Jurassic World didn't do well, and then you transfer it to somebody else whose vision is completely different from Episode 8, those are all higher up decisions. So that is a glaring stain on her legacy with Star Wars for me personally. I don't know how you can excuse that.
It's the truth. I was just gonna say, I think that is one of the more glaring things that she has to carry with her, is that the creative differences that have just haunted what could have been for Star Wars when Disney took them over, right? We got what we got with Force Awakens, and I think that was a great start. But The Last Jedi tore the fandom apart. Some people just completely miss the fantastic video games and novels that are coming out under Disney. There's such a niche type of people
Yeah.
who get that. Everybody loves The Mandalorian, which is Kathleen Kennedy, but those creative difference, the lack of plan for the sequel trilogy, and essentially, we have to talk about solo bombing. Like you
Oh
took
yeah.
Han Solo, one of the most popular characters, not only in Star Wars, but just in movie franchise history, just movie history, and just a disappointment like that. That's just, I
That
don't
is a
know.
release date
I'm
thing. I've said that since day one, and I'll die on that. I don't
It's
know
not.
who
It's
chose
it's
that
not a
release date.
release date thing. It's not a release date thing. Let me tell you this. When
Eh,
I was working for, I mean, I know Bob Iger came out and said that they shouldn't have picked that date. I
for
don't
once,
buy
he was
that.
right.
I don't buy it. When I was working at Disney, there were people who worked at Disney who didn't know they were making a solo movie, that it was coming out that week.
That's
Yeah, but a lot of
insane.
cast members aren't the brightest. A lot of them don't even know, like, the basic of Disney facts and Disney history. So I'm not surprised there. It's just,
But bro, we live in Disney. There should be anytime you're at the. I was working at Hollywood Studios. There's banners in the park talking
yeah,
about it. There's hard
still.
ticket events that they're selling, and I worked in ticket sales. And there's hard ticket events they're selling that are celebrating the Solo movie. And people are like, what? They're doing a Han Solo movie? I'm like, this is 3 days from now. Where have you been?
Yeah.
So it was a
But at the
marketing
same
thing too.
time, what was it? Infinity War that just came out like that within a month of that, like that's or a week or two. I don't know. I can't remember exactly, but
Let's see.
pretty sure one of the biggest movies of all time came out around that same date. So probably not a good idea
You
to
know,
schedule it for that time.
since we're on the topic of Solo and Rogue One, we put it under that umbrella. I just looked up what Rogue One made. I don't know if we mentioned this. That made
Really?
1.6 billion dollars. Yeah.
Yeah, it was huge.
Yeah.
Rogue One
Yeah.
was huge. And
And
that's my point. Like, people knew about Rogue One. People didn't know about Solo.
if, sure
What
seems
came
I
that
out
lived
way,
here.
or
I
they
lived
didn't
around
here
the
for a
care.
time of
month.
Rogue One.
Who knows, bro?
Exactly.
I have,
Yep.
but dude, it doesn't matter. Did you go see both movies?
Yeah.
So would other people. We're not unique. People would go see both movies.
The hard, the hardcore nerds like us do, but mom and pop that maybe can only take their kids to one movie every 3, 4, or 5 weeks. They
and so
probably picked
explain to me
Marvel
why Solo shouldn't do better than that.
because those families picked to go see Marvel instead of
Ah,
Solo.
I don't know. I mean, yes, that is true because it
Exactly.
obviously
Like,
did better, but I don't think
yeah,
that was the deciding factor for most people. I'm telling you, people didn't know this movie existed. They did a horrible job marketing it. They
exactly.
partnered with fucking Denny's.
Yeah.
Denny's was like their like advertising thing. Like that doesn't make any sense.
Wait,
Why is
wasn't
Denny's?
and wasn't weren't the original directors of this movie fired and then Ron
Yes,
Howard came in and like did a
Yeah.
bunch
yeah,
of reshoots like
it
that?
was Benioff and Weiss.
Coming from a DC fan, that never works out in your favorite, man.
Same with Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, there's been so much like behind the scenes shit that even Rogue One, there's like proof that he didn't really direct that movie. Like Gareth Edward was like written off, and they brought in what's his name to come in and do most of it. He's given like a executive credit, and like apparently Gareth Edwards just kind of played ball and was able to stay on as director technically, but apparently he didn't direct a good chunk of that movie.
Hmm. Yeah.
There's a lot of this behind the scenes shit that is just like, why are we having this many problems? The only production that went smoothly from all accounts is The Last Jedi and most of The Force Awakens. Everything else had problems.
I wonder if it'll ever come out like a behind the scenes, kind of like a VH1 behind the music.
Dude, I would pay top dollar for that.
So Infinity War dropped around Solo, and then wasn't Deadpool 2 not around that time
It
too?
it was either Deadpool 1 or 2. No, Deadpool 1 was like February. So I think it was Deadpool 2. But either
Okay.
way, also not good to have that right next to your movie. So I
I
don't
mean,
I don't
I will give
disagree.
you
I
this:
don't disagree.
Marvel was
Yeah.
red hot at this point.
yeah.
It
They
was
were
red hot,
Infinity
but
War.
Star
Okay.
Wars should be like, in my opinion, Star Wars should never have to go. Oh, we shouldn't release a movie. You're fucking Star Wars. You created the blockbuster. You're the reason why Avengers Infinity War is a fucking thing in the first place. The fact that
Hmm.
you're having to cower to a Marvel movie, even as red hot as it was, and one of the greatest Marvel movies, in my opinion, I think it's probably number one or number two. Um, like you still that shouldn't even be something that you even have to consider. You're fucking Star Wars.
Hmm. It's the truth. It's the truth. And a lot of people are celebrating her ousting, or I wouldn't even call it an ousting because it sounds like she's retiring. And Disney hasn't confirmed it yet, as far as I know. These are just reports.
They
So we
won't until they hire the new person. Like
and that's fine. Well, yeah, that's kind of where I wanted to wrap up today. We were keeping this little bonus episode short, and our Andor commentary, by the way, and we should talk about the Andor trailer too. I don't know, have you guys seen that yet?
I haven't watched
Um,
it yet. I've been waiting. I've been waiting to watch it on the big screen, and I forgot last night because we were watching Harry
oh, okay,
Potter.
okay. Well, anyway, we don't have to talk about that because we're doing a lot of Andor coming up, so we can complete and do all that breakdown. But the most important thing here is the Kathleen Kennedy news. You got our quick reaction now, Brad, Neb. I want to ask you, and I'll answer this too. Who takes over?
To me, there's only one answer. You give it to Dave Filoni, and you give it to John Favreau,
Hmm.
and you make them like a Walton Roy or a Eisner and Frank Wells role, and you let them co-run it. Let one person be the creative. Let one person be the person behind the scenes with all the Hollywood connections. Who knows how to write a story? Who knows what it takes to see a good story? You have it built in with these two. Provided this is all hinging on that if the Mando Grogu movie is good.
That's fair.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
I know
think if
we
that's a bomb, then you figure something out. But I think that makes the most creative sense for Star Wars. They need creativity now more than they've ever needed it because everything they've done, with the exception of Skeleton Crew, has been so goddamn safe and boring, except the sequel trilogy. But like even Mando is safe because you're putting it in the and you're basically doing an original trilogy story vibe, and that's safe. I mean, let's be perfectly honest. It's a safe bet. Of course, that's going to work. You need something that's going to be like that's interesting.
The Acolyte wasn't a safe bet, and that bombed like hell.
It's totally safe. It's a prequel story. It's Jedi's. It's
Oh,
that
oh, you mean safe
like
from that perspective? Yeah, I
yeah,
see.
in
like
concept.
safe
Yeah.
storytelling,
I see.
safe,
Okay,
Yeah.
safe
okay.
concept.
Yeah. Now, I think we said it within the past month or so, but now more than ever, like Brad just said, this Mando movie is huge for the future of Star Wars. Like we already said that, but now it's even bigger. And I'm with Brad 100%. If you're going to do two people running it, that's the way to go. Favreau and Filoni. But if it's only one person, I say Filoni. So I'm 100% with Brad on that. That's the easy go-to slam dunk idea. Hopefully that's what they do.
If I
Hmm.
had to pick one person, I would actually give it to John Favreau over Filoni. And the only reason for that is I think Filoni is more of a creative person versus someone who knows how the movies and stuff are made. I mean, he
Yeah.
hasn't directed anything in live action before. John Favreau has a laundry list of great movies under his belt.
That's
Yeah,
And
true.
true.
we forget he did Elf, which is
Yeah.
like, do you know how hard it is to make like a modern classic Christmas movie? Like, this is going to sound a little hyperbolic, and I don't mean it that way. I think he is a legit movie genius.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you.
I
'Cause I
think
mean,
he's amazing to me. So
like,
I think you give somebody with that prowess that job.
yeah, like modern day Christmas classics are basically Grinch and Elf. Like that's it. There hasn't been
Yeah,
anything aside from
haven't
that
been
in
anything
decades. Like, yeah,
that's a classic like that. Yeah, no.
yeah,
So like, if you can, he's proven he can do more than just one thing. Like the same guy that made Elf made the Jungle Book and made Star Wars. Like and made Kingpin. Like he can do everything. He was in the show Friends. Like this dude's done everything. He's
yeah.
like
He was
he's
in
just
Seinfeld too.
yeah, and he was in How I Met Your Mother. If I remember right. Wasn't he one of the brothers in How I Met Your Mother?
John
No,
Favreau.
what was he in? He played like an MMA fighter. Oh, it was
The Vince Vaughn movie with Steve Byrne.
yes,
Four
that one. Yes,
Christmases.
Four Christmases. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I just watched. He was the
Yeah.
MMA fighter in. Like he's a true talent, and I think giving someone with his connections is probably smarter than giving someone who's just a creative guy. And I don't mean that derogatorily.
No, I
Like
agree. I agree.
someone who knows how the business works is what you need right now.
I agree. Danny Phantom said the same thing on our post about Kathleen Kennedy. So he said the same thing
Let's
because
go.
I said it's got to be Filoni, but he's like, and we both came to an agreement. But he's like, yeah, but like Filoni doesn't know the business side, so
Yeah,
there's a lot into that. And if the two of them just like tag teamed it together, then yeah, of course, like
they'd be
Star Wars would be in,
unstoppable.
yeah, Star Wars would be in fantastic hands. And I think the casuals mixed in with the diehards who don't think anything Disney does Star Wars is good will jump on the ship and say,
They have
yep, let's go.
they have done the one thing that is unanimous: The Mandalorian. Not all
True.
seasons are perfect, but it is. I mean, he created fucking Grogu, bro.
Hmm.
One of the most beloved Star Wars characters ever, and he's been around for like what 5 6 years.
Yeah.
Like you have to give it to one of these two guys. And I also see like maybe John Favreau doesn't want to do this.
Hmm.
Maybe he wants to go and keep doing other things, but you got to at least have a conversation of offering it to him.
Hmm.
If
Well,
you don't, I think you're kind of fucking crazy.
if you don't, you're fucking crazy. That's how Jedi Talk ends today. So, Evan, Brad, you got anything last you want to say before we cut this bonus episode off and see everybody for the return of our Andor commentary later this week?
I'm a little nervous. I hope this all works out. To be honest with you, I don't know if I want her gone.
Hmm.
But if
Interesting.
she's gonna, I think that it is time for dramatic change. Like, why would you get rid of someone if they're just gonna keep doing the same thing that their
Yeah. Change is good.
predecessor was doing?
Change is okay.
Yeah.
Let's embrace it, accept it. It's okay.
Yes, it
Evan,
is.
Evan, final thoughts.
No, like like I said, don't understand the hate. Congratulations, Kathleen Kennedy. You deserve this retirement. And we weren't really obviously bashing on the quality of Solo because I think all three of us love that movie. So
It's
I just
fun.
wanted to clarify that.
It's a fun
But
movie.
yeah, it's a not troubling time, but an important time for Star Wars because this is a
No.
big, big decision. So I am very excited to see who it is. It'd be crazy if they just announced it at Celebration or something,
Ooh.
but
Oh,
that would be
yeah.
wild.
I don't think so.
I
Yeah,
bet you don't see. I bet you don't see Kathleen. If you don't see Kathleen Kennedy show up at celebration, then it's true.
yeah.
So you don't think she'd go to her final celebration as president?
Oh, see, that's a good point. Maybe she would.
Yeah, yeah, I think she would. I think
I
she'd
don't
Maybe,
think
go.
they would
This
announce
is
it.
this
maybe she
is
confirms it. So you
yeah.
guys know you guys have been hearing a lot of rumors lately, and yes, they're true. But just to let you know, Star Wars is going to be in great hands. We've selected someone. We're not going to reveal it today, but we've selected someone who's going to carry Star Wars into the future and do more amazing storytelling than we've ever seen in Star Wars. And the crowd goes,
If it's
"Fuck,
Filoni,
I could write these perfect speeches.
if
Fuck, give me a
it's
job."
If it's if it's Filoni, they almost have to like announce it at Celebration. How big would that be for them? So
Yeah.
that'd be awesome.
Now I'm
So
hoping it
Do you
does
know
happen
how
because I'll
hard?
be here for that. Like I'll be there.
Do you know how hard it would be to know you're going to be like the replacement for Star Wars and not say anything? Jesus Christ.
I mean, hey, if anybody can do it, it's the guy that kept Grogu a secret.
a lot of
Yeah,
zeros will
true.
do that. Well, you guys have been great. You've
Yeah.
been Jedi Talk. Let us know what you think at Jedi Talk Podcast on Instagram, youtube.com/Jedi Talk. Brad, take us home on this bonus episode.
Thank you guys. Listen, we'll see you guys on the next one. Until then, stay safe. May the force be with you.
Always and Tabuite.
Rise, Jedi.